Hello, I'm Mike from the Good Better Bullshit podcast, and I'm making this video because well, we recently did a podcast on our topic was vaccine. Well, first of all, the Good Better Bullshit podcast, which you should check out if you haven't, is a show where me and two of my buddies get together and we select a topic at random. We do have no clue what it is, and then we have a conversation about it, and then we give it a verdict. I can't remember what I said about vaccines. I think good, probably good. In any case, I have had it up to here with the anti-vaxxer movement. So in the episode, I mentioned that I'd rather talk to Wall, which is this guy right here, the Wall, for 20 minutes than an anti-vaxxer. And one of our listeners, suggested that that I should do that, and we should do a Patreon drive to get new patrons if I were to make a video of me talking to a wall for 20 minutes. So that's what I'm doing. We got the 3 new people. In fact, I think we got 4 or 5. So thank you very much, people who donated whatever you did. This extremely boring video is going to be made because of your support, and we do appreciate it. I think the episodes of our show are a lot more interesting than this is likely to be. I don't know what I'm going to say. I have not prepared anything. In fact, I'm going to start the timer right now. 20 minutes, and we'll see what happens. And I'll talk to the wall. So Wall, we just did a dry run of this. We didn't mean to, but turns out I had what do you call them? An SD card in the camera here, and it was a 1 gig SD card. For some reason, I thought it was a 16 gig card. So I talked for actually, I think it was 17 minutes to this wall. I talked to 17 minutes for this wall, and then it said there was no more room. So we're starting over. I got a new SD card. There's 4 gigs on this one, so that should give me plenty of time to finish this excellent video. Now, I talked about a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to rehash it all because I don't want to say it again. I'm sure, Wall, you don't want to hear it again, including the bit I said about vaccines. But I'm going to just leave that and see where my mind takes me. It's been interesting doing this podcast. I really do enjoy it. Lately, I've kind of crystallized why I like doing this podcast with Bo and Croft and 2 co-hosts on the show, and just generally they're good at having conversations, and I like having conversations. And because we do this random topic thing, it's just it could be anything. And I've mentioned on the show I really like learning about pretty much anything, and I've always been like that. I'll go down random holes on Wikipedia, or read books, or watch documentaries, or listen to podcasts. It doesn't really almost matter what. I'm interested in almost everything, and being able to have a conversation where you don't know what the topic is, it's fun to just see what you remember, and that's what I like about a kind of unrehearsed conversation. You don't know where it's going to go, and that is important to me. I think people don't have enough kind of real conversations. I always like to differentiate them between, like, there's small talk conversations, and that's all fine and good. But I'm the type, I get tired of the small talk. I can make small talk. I have no problem talking to someone about the weather, what they do for work. I can tell you that Bo, one of the co-hosts in the show, I think he can fake it for a short period of time, and then would just be like, F this, I'm out of here. He does not have, I think, a lot of tolerance for that if he's not interested in the subject matter. I can small talk for quite a while. Crofton, on the other hand, on our show, he can small talk forever and be interesting, and you'd enjoy the small talk with him. He can also talk about ideas and issues too, which mostly we do on the Good Better Bullshit podcast. But in any case, I really like conversations about sort of ideas, and it's just like I wish there was more opportunities for it, and doing the podcast gives me a weekly opportunity for it. But I honestly, like, the other day I was helping my neighbor dig a hole. He's got this, like, he's I guess not a very handy guy. He's a super smart guy, but just never got into, like, fixing stuff. And I'm a little bit of a handy person. So he was gonna hire some contractor to do this, put a window well in with some drainage to something called a dry well, And I said, well, that's pretty easy. I can help you do that. I'll just tell you what to do, and I'll help you when you need help. So we were doing this, and we were making small talk. What do you do for a living, and whatever. And it was all pleasant. He was a super nice guy. But I really wanted to ask him if he'd ever thought about the nature of consciousness. And I know that's like, but I held back because you never know. Some people, it just, that would they'd be like, what, and it's not like I'm mired in this stuff, consciousness. But I guess I think about a lot of stuff, and I was just like, I would always love to get anyone else's perspective on it, to be like, what do you think it is? I mean, but you don't want to put someone in an awkward position, so I just sort of don't do it. Recently, I was reading this article in this online magazine called Aeon. I'm a big fan of Aeon. Tons of interesting articles there. And I read one about, I can't actually remember what the context, it was something to do with philosophy. It was called Pop-Up Philosophy or something like this. And it was about this university professor. Okay, I remember what it was. It was that this professor thought that people these days, we don't spend any time thinking. We do a lot of stuff, we're busy, but we don't just sort of sit down and think. And so he did this thing where he took these, lawn chairs or whatever, and he went to various places. I think he was from London, so London, England. And I have to say that because I live in Canada, there's a London, Ontario, and they're very different places. One you'd want to visit, and the other one is London, Ontario. So, anyways, he he would set up these lawn chairs, and I guess he would have a sign that says something like "Take a seat and think," or I don't know, something like that. And people would mostly laugh, and they'd take pictures of him while he sat there in his chair, thinking about whatever. And it wasn't like, he might have been a teacher of philosophy, but he wasn't like sit down and think about, Socrates or any specific philosophy. Just think about anything, And some people did sit down and for a few minutes, and I think he said he had a few good conversations about it. And I love just random, I'll think about things whenever. Usually something needs to spark my interest. I'll read an article, or I'll hear something on the radio, or someone will mention something to me, and that'll get my brain worrying. So that's why I really feel like conversation is the better way to spark thinking. It'll cue up memories you didn't know, or things you didn't know you can remember once you start talking. So I was kind of thinking of doing the same thing, except that I'm a bit introverted, and I worried how that would go over if I took my lawn chairs and I went downtown and just said like had a little sign that says like have a conversation with me, and then just it'd be there'd be no time limit or whatever, and just see what random people sit down. And I would almost probably take the same approach as our podcast. I think I'd say, let's just pick a topic, and let them pick it, or give them a selection of 20, or pick one out of a hat, and then we just chat about it. Because I feel not only would you hear someone else's ideas on something they didn't know they were going to talk about, you might also you might also cue in them this an interest in whatever it is, and you're gonna learn something about yourself and about them just by talking. So I thought about doing this, but I'm not sure how well it will go over. I live in government town, and it's pretty it can be pretty stiff shirt. I mean, I say that, but I know there's tons of interesting people around, and you never know what you might end up talking about. It's kind of funny with conversations. My dad, though he's never practiced this, is one of these people who's always said like, you don't talk about politics, religion, and sex. I guess that's the other one. Those are like the taboo things with people you don't know that well, and like a dinner party or something like that. But pretty much those are always the things I want to talk about. Somewhat less sex, because I think there's maybe less there to talk about. But certainly politics and like religion. And I guess the reason is that people don't like to be made uncomfortable, right? And I always find like I want my points of view to be challenged. Like I'm ready to defend my point of view on whatever it is. But I like it to be challenged because it forces you to think about your idea, right? So I kind of want people to say, "Oh, you're an idiot. How can you believe that?" And give some, I don't know, say why they think that, and then I would have to either defend that or realize that I am in fact an idiot, and that's certainly probably true of some things. But I find a lot of people have, a worldview or an opinion on something, and they don't want it to be rocked, and and I find that a bit strange, because it should be either one, like you don't know enough about a thing, so then why should you care? If someone does know more about it, you might learn something, and then if you do, then you must have thought about it, and then therefore you probably have good reasons why you hold those views. So you should be ready to want to engage in a conversation about it. So I don't know. I guess that's just me. I know some people don't want to just want to engage in small talk. I mean, my mother-in-law, who's like the nicest woman in the world, I think she can get into politics and stuff too. But small talk, she's the king of small talk. Maybe even better than Crofton, and that's saying something. But yeah, sometimes it's just you can talk to her and it'll be like, "How's your mother? How's your dad?" And then you tell some anecdote about them, and then it goes on from there. But yeah, I don't know. That just it gets a bit old for me. It's like socially draining. Like if you go to like if you go to a party, say you go to a party and it's like you're there with your friend, you go with a friend. It's like, come on, let's go to this party. It'll be fun. And you're like, okay, you're going with someone who's a good person. You see the people there will be nice people too. You walk into the party. Your friend is like knows everyone there, so is just says, oh, I'm gonna go say hello to Bob. All right, see, you will meet up later, whatever. And then you're stuck in someone's living room that you've not been in before, and there's like, say, 30 people. Maybe they all know each other in some way, and then you have this moment where you've got a drink or something, and you're sitting there, and you realize, oh, I'm on my own here. And you don't know anyone, and you see all these little closed groups of conversations, and I'm introverted enough that I cannot, like, I always find it so awkward. Like, what do? You just walk up to a group of 4 people and sort of just appear in with them, and then, I find that so awkward. So usually you sit there and you have that moment of, like, terror where, like, oh God, I'm here I am, everyone's going to know I'm a loser and I don't know anyone. And then you see one other person who's equally there, and, like, it's like you're both out at sea, and you're each a life preserver. You grab on each other, and you're just. But then you start in the small talk, right? Oh, hi, my name's Mike. And they're like, oh yeah, hi, I'm Shirley. Oh, hi, Shirley. How do you know Shane? It's his place, right? She's like, oh yeah, Shane. I don't really know him. He's a friend of my boyfriend. You're like, oh, okay. Who's your boyfriend? He's like, oh, he's over there talking to Bob. Oh, that's who Bob. I came with Bob. Yeah, I'm friends with Bob. Or no, I'm friends with the guys, and then you're doing this, and you can do that for like ever, and it drains me. But if Shirley were to say something controversial to me, whatever it would be, she'd be like, "So, Mike, what do you think about capital punishment? Should we kill people who are bad or not?" Then I'd be like, "Wow." I could sink my teeth into that. Now I don't want to start a conversation with you all about capital punishment. I just mean that's a meaty conversation. That's one where it's like you can approach it from an emotional point of view. You can approach it from a rational point of view. You can approach it from a social policy point of view, from a cost point of view. There's all different ways to unpack it, and it can be highly emotional. And I don't know, as soon as I get into those kinds of conversations about sort of, I don't know, the state of the world or controversial ideas, they really just, it does the opposite of the small talk for me. It just makes my head start to whir. Like, I have this friend, Janice, who's an awesome and energetic person who never fails to so I'll hang out with her or whatever. And she'll be over at the house for dinner or something like that, and she'll... she's the type who lingers too, and it's not a bad thing. But I tend to get, because I'm an old person and I have a kid, I get tired It's like 10 o'clock. I'm starting to be like, okay, we're getting ready for bed soon here. And then never fail, Janice will start talking about something like climate change. With her, it's often something related to climate change or energy, because she works in the field, and we're both on the same page with the whole energy thing. But she'll always make it some. So she'll start some conversation, like she'll say, "Oh, did you ever follow through and getting the solar panels on your roof?" And I'll say, "Oh no, I don't. I mean, the system." And this is, I don't want to rehash this conversation, but like the system we have in Ontario is one that bothers me, and we'll go on about why we have like policy problems which are inhibiting people from getting onto photovoltaic panels on the roof based on the interests of industry. And then you're like, and all of a sudden, we're into this conversation, and it'll be like midnight, and I'll be like, I meant to go to bed 2 hours ago. I'm like, Janice, will you get me another one of your conversations? But it just like revs me up, and then I can't get to sleep, because then she'll finally leave, and I'll go and lie down in bed, and my head will be buzzing about like the problems of climate change and all the various hurdles we have to overcome before we can get where we need to go. I mean, it really is. I know, Wall, that you don't care about climate change. You're not affected. I mean, you might be if there's a big flood and the house falls down, or we get a hurricane up this far north and you're blown over. But as you're an inanimate object, you probably won't care too much. But it really feels like this is a pressing issue, and it can't help but infuriate you to be like, why can't we change? And I find this such a interesting and fundamental thing about human nature. It's like people resist change. And I'm guilty of this. I try not to be, because I think we all know that change is the one certainty. Like, it's guaranteed. You can do your best to keep your life as it is, and one day, even if you manage to do that, then one day you'll die. And guess what? That's a big change. You might not like it, but it's going to happen. It's just like, so we fight tooth and nail against it, yet it is absolutely 100% inevitable. And especially with something like climate change, where it's like, change is not only inevitable, but we have the choice of like, it could be catastrophic end of civilization change. I mean, I don't really think it'll be like that, but it might be hundreds of millions of people starve to death. That's it's terrible. That, or we could change and get on renewable energy now and create new jobs doing it, and get greenhouse gases down. We could do that now. We have the choice, but the change is coming, and we just are too dumb to say, well, why don't we decide what that change is going to be instead of wait for the change to come to us. And it's like, rationally, if human beings were rational, which I think we can agree, not so rational, that if you had the option of like, if you were given a scenario, change is coming, and option A, you get to choose, and option B, it's just coming. Why wouldn't you choose option A, right? Like, if you have a say in it, take the say. I mean, I guess the issue with it's more complicated than that, in the sense that there are people with vested interests, and by that I mean money, jobs, whatever, security, that keep them from wanting to change. But I just think those people are short-sighted, especially when it's people with money, because if you have money, you have the ability to get yourself into the new game. Someone like a regular person who's like, well, I'll put efficient light bulbs in my ceiling. Great, I'll do what I can for climate change. But it's like, I can't buy a renewable energy company, right? Or I can't start a electric car company. I don't have those resources. But if you were like the CEO of Exxon, I do not know why you wouldn't use your billions of dollars of profit a year to make sure that you're going to get the billions of dollars in profits that are going to come from the green energy revolution, which will come. It's a question of like, will it be too late, or will we just, and at this point it seems like it will be too late. I know it's a cynical thing, but the older I get, people get more cynical when they get older, but I find that cynicism is I like it. I think it makes sense. It's just like it's kind of like being a realist, right? I mean, I guess the pessimistic view on cynicism is that it's just pessimism. I don't think that that's true. I think it's a little bit like you kind of you kind of expect the worst, but I think it's usually based on past experience and human nature that you observe, and so I was telling this to my sister in law just today, that I'm rarely disappointed with stuff. I mean, I'm not happy about things like that Trump is elected. Now I was surprised by that. Uh, and I mean, I guess I shouldn't say I was disappointed by that, but I mean in the sense that like I wasn't surprised in the sense that I realized that a lot of people are dumb, and all around the world, and they can be convinced by demagoguery and cheap politics, the kind that Trump peddles, to put someone like that in power. Like that does not surprise me to me. That's what a cynic would say. It's like, oh yeah, people are dumb. They'll be convinced. That's a cynical view. So I was not surprised by like, oh, he actually won. I mean, wow, the people are even dumber than I thought they were, and I thought people were generally dumb to begin with. So so that's kind of like one of those things. I mean, yeah, I guess I am still disappointed. So maybe my cynicism isn't leading me to you know, greater happiness. Well, it's been 20 minutes. Um, I assume that was extremely boring to watch, but if it wasn't, let me know. Drop us a line at goodbadbull at gmail.com. That's our email. If you want more awful videos of me talking to a wall, you know, maybe we could do another Patreon drive. Thanks again to Jim, who suggested it, and to all the people who actually gave us a few dollars to help our little podcast pay for our server costs and stay on the air. We really appreciate your patronage, and anyone else who listens, we appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed this silly video. I'm sure everyone pressed pause like 20 minutes ago. Here I am still rambling. That's how terrible it is. But in any case, I think I'll call it there because I need to drink some water, and I don't have any right here. But Wall, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure we'll chat again soon. All right, bye.